Welcome to the Highest Health Podcast. Raise your health, elevate yourself, and enrich your life. Experience a world of health sovereignty. As you near your highest health, you near your most luminous self. All right, guys, welcome back to the Highest Health Podcast. Today we have Jessica Bellofatto on the show. She is an entrepreneur in the space of yoga, movement, holistic therapies, stand-up paddle boarding, nature retreats. She's also a mom of 3, a triathlete, and her mission is to support others in healing as they charter their own course to happiness. She is the director and owner of JB Yoga, a yoga, wellness, and lifestyle company based in the East End of Long Island, New York. Thank you so much for coming on today, Jess.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
We were just chatting how the last time I saw you, the world was so different. It was like over 2 years ago. And we're actually in Italy on one of your beautiful retreats in the middle of these lush mountains in Gubbio, was it?
Yeah, close to Gubbio.
Nice. Yeah. It was some fun retreats.
Yeah.
Cool. So I love the name of your business. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why you named your business JB Yoga?
That's easy. My initials are Jessica or JB, Jessica Bellofatto. 20 years ago, I had opened a yoga studio. It was my second yoga studio, and I named it was called Kamadeva Yoga, which is like this hard to say, hard to spell Sanskrit name that never really like resonated with me. I liked what it meant, but no one else really understood what it meant. And that was my brick and mortar yoga studio. And then as I was transitioning into the stand-up paddleboarding and also more of my retreat business, I wanted another name for those businesses. And I certainly wasn't going to call like Kamadeva Yoga. I was like, that's the studio. And then so my separate website was jessicabellofattoyoga.com. And I was like, this is too much. Like no one can spell this. So I shortened it to JB Yoga. And then I actually changed the name of my yoga studio, which is now closed, but I changed that name to JB Yoga because then I all just wanted it to fall under one umbrella as like this wellness brand. But the other piece of that was this Just Be You, JBY. And that was in terms of sort of empowering women to discover who they are and to sort of stand in that truth of who they are and all of the things that light up you as an individual, whether it be through the practice of yoga, meditation, for me, obviously getting on the water, like connecting with nature, all of those things, discovering like, just be you, like, don't try to be anybody else other than who you are authentically.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so that's where it came from.
That's exactly why I asked. So thank you for sharing. And can you do a little quick intro on how you got into this whole yoga space? The reason why I always admired you growing up is because, and then for our listeners, Jessica Bellofatto happens to be my cousin.
First cousin,
yeah, which is important when you're Italian because everyone is your cousin.
Exactly.
You just like straight after college, like you never really got employed by like a career. You just started your own path, which is, I feel like in the entrepreneurial space, some people, they they have an employer and then they dive into this space, but you were just straight from the start into your own path. And so I would love if you could share a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I went to New York University. I was a dance major there. I really wanted to become a professional dancer. I realized very quickly, or so I thought, it's not necessarily true, but in my head, a professional dancer needed to live in an urban environment. And I loved my time at New York University, but I very quickly discovered that I was not a city girl, even though I was born in Brooklyn. I was definitely seeking a different life and more nature. And I wanted to be able to be outside and be barefoot and, pee in the woods and all that kind of thing. So through my dancing, though, I was turned on to yoga from a dance teacher, dance mentor, went to a little studio in the East Village, started practicing yoga in my second year of college, and then decided after graduating from NYU, I actually graduated with a dance education degree. So I had a lot of like the like educational requirements and the anatomy and physiology and all that stuff. And then I kind of spontaneously or without really thinking about it, I did a yoga teacher training. And I was like, well, I don't really think I want to teach yoga, but I'll just do this training because it was, how when you're in college, like, and you don't really want to like grow up and get a real job or, like,
right.
Like, I just wanted to continue to be in school of like some sort of school because I didn't really know what I was going to do. Absolutely. So I went straight from my BS to this year-long yoga teacher training, still not really knowing what I was going to do. And then they sort of threw us into teaching. 20 some odd years ago, it was like right place, right time, where I never thought I could make a living teaching yoga. I was tending bar, but I also knew I could never work for somebody else, and I could never work in a corporate environment, and I could never work a 9 to 5. Like, I just knew those things about myself. Like, I will never sit at a desk like for somebody else, like building somebody else's dream, like ever. Yeah. So it was right place, right time. I very quickly was like referred to various sort of higher end clients, private yoga sessions. And I was like, oh, I'm paying my bills by teaching, 5 or 10 yoga private sessions a week. And, granted, I was running around New York City and I was exhausted, but that was the path of yoga. Opened a studio, got a little burnt out because, running your own business is there's like, it's like the two-sided, it's like, yes, it's sometimes easier to have a 9 to 5 where you just show up, you clock in, you clock out. Whereas running a business or owning a studio, it was like working weekends, working holidays, sitting at midnight, updating my website, all of the things that go along with doing that. And I also got a little burnt out on like sort of studio ownership and that kind of thing. So I transitioned into the paddleboarding and kind of tied that in as like an additional revenue stream, and then paddleboard yoga, and then my retreat business, which was another, I love to travel. I love the beach. Great. Let's start doing some yoga retreats. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, it totally does. No, I love it. It's, I didn't know that you just did this yoga training with no intent of really pursuing anything. So that's awesome. Okay. To find your highest health and truest sovereign nature, you have to lose your weak self. And from knowing you, Jess, I know you would agree with that. How does yoga and meditation help serve us in helping us lose our weak self?
It's a path and a practice of constant self-reflection and getting to know yourself and getting to know, if you go to sit in meditation and you close your eyes and it's like you are bombarded, there's no running away. Like you have to sit with yourself. And, and in that way, you get to know all the different parts of yourself, like the good, the bad, the ugly. And then you can start to like wrestle a little bit with like, what are those weaker parts? Acknowledge them, embrace them, integrate them, heal them. And then, and then in that way, become like a better individual, a stronger individual. I never like to say it's like, you're not like neglecting any part of yourself that doesn't, it's like you're kind of laying it all out on the table and learning how to love every part of yourself, every aspect of yourself. Doesn't mean you have to like, show that self to, but yourself. Right. So like, and then on the mat too, with like the physical yoga practice, you become stronger and stronger in, if you're holding a pose and it's really, really hard, and you're wanting to give up, or you're wanting to quit, or you're wanting to run away, or you're wanting to avoid it. And so you get to really kind of like do this with yourself on a daily basis.
That's awesome. It forces you to confront yourself, like spiritually, physically, mentally. And I love how you brought it goes back to like loving all the parts of yourself, even the ones that you're not completely happy with. In my time on this earth, I've noticed that people can often blame their current health conditions on their DNA or their genotype, but contrary to popular belief, our genes are not static. They are dynamic and constantly adapting to our environments. So I would love to hear your perspective on how does yoga provide an environment for positive gene expression?
That is a hard question.
It's a loaded question.
I know you're into Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he talks about that all the time.
Does he? I was going to ask you about him.
Oh, yeah. So he articulates it way, way better than I can, but that, we can't, to use as an excuse, our history, our family history, our even our own personal health history, and to say like, this is just who I am, and these are the health issues that I'm confronted with, and they're never changing is, it's like a cop out. And then the whole idea of changing your energy to change your life, changing your mind to change your life, healing. I mean, if you dive into the work of Dr. Joe, and I saw it on the stage in Marco Island. I was on the Marco Island retreat with him in January, where 1,500 people in a hotel room for 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day, meditating at like 4:00 in the morning.
Wow.
For a 4-hour meditation at 4 a.m. But then the people that came on stage, like the testimonials, and even on his website, you see these testimonials where people they're handed death sentences with cancer and all sorts of other things. And they're doing the work and literally healing. It's like, and there's like even spontaneous healings, like one meditation, and their eczema like falls off their body.
Wow.
Like, so yeah, I mean, there's always, we can believe in the seen and the known, and sort of the past, allowing the past to, he basically says like most of us we're taking our past and just we're living in the past because we're just taking that past and putting it into the future, which is the known. But if we dive into the unknown and the quantum and beyond the realm of time and space and beyond the world of the senses, and we go into the infinite void and like the field of possibility where like there are an infinite number of possibilities. And then he literally says like you select them from the field. It's like you're in the void, you're in the unknown, and you reach out and you're like, okay, I want that one.
Wow. That's incredible.
Like whether it be, abundance or a relationship or your health or, like anything like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. That is really cool. And I'm sure you've had some awesome experiences at his retreat. You were in a room with like 1,500 people meditating at the same time at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Wow. That sounds like such an experience.
And that in and of itself was insane. Like it's funny because as for the many years that I've been meditating or trying to meditate, half an hour was always like, okay, I'm good. I'm going to do this half an hour meditation. You hear like start to meditate 5 minutes a day, 20, 15 minutes a day. So that 30-minute mark, I was always like, I'm good. Set my timer, and it felt nice. And like, I felt good. And like, yes, maybe I'm a calmer person or a little less stressed or whatever, but I never actually felt like it was changing anything. And then when I was like, how am I going to sit for an hour in these meditations, or how am I going to, and like you put on this, like these eye shades. So you're going into like this, like literal blackness. So it's not even like, oh, I have to meditate in a beautiful place with palm trees. It's like, no, you black out this world. Like you black it out. For and then you're wearing like earbuds because they're all guided meditations.
Oh, awesome.
And there's music and his voice and there's all this sound. And it's like, But then being in a room with that many people, I think we were all sort of that collective like energy of like
right.
dropping in. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
That sounds pretty wild, man. That's so cool though that you went on one of his retreats.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. My next question, I feel like you answered my next question beautifully with that, but it was what are some ways yoga meditation help us leave the superficial level of consciousness and lead a life of more depth? Because I feel like a lot of people are just walking around, on that superficial layer, and it's it's part of being human, so it's not
Right.
it's not like a bad thing per se, but I feel like there's so much more granularity to life, and just such a deeper experience we could have every day. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but
Yeah, I mean,
right.
and again, I'm not, we don't all have to go run after Dr. Joe, but he's pretty amazing. And there's many other meditation teachers and sages and spiritual people that have been saying this. There's the material world, and then there's this inner universe, this inner world. And if we've come from love and we've come from bliss and we've come from wholeness, why do we not feel that on any given day? Why are we operating, like you said, like in this material world, but also, and this, a state of lack, a state of survival, like especially the past 2 years, like everybody's in survival mode, and doesn't matter where you are in the world, what your circumstances are, your money, your, whatever, you close your eyes and you go inside and you start to feel like the inner space of your heart, and which is where you came from. It's like a state of bliss. So you can access that bliss anywhere. And then you open your eyes and are like, oh, I don't really care that, I can't buy that pair of jeans right now because
the petty stuff,
whatever. Like it becomes much less important to you.
Yeah. You start detaching from like petty aspects, and then I feel like it also does make you appreciate more of the human experience. Cause it's like, for me personally, I don't know where you are, Jess, but like, I still, like fast cars and nice dinners, like I can still take a lot of pleasure in those because it is part of the human
and there's nothing
experience.
wrong with that.
Yeah. But it's also just like not missing out on how beautiful the present moment is in like dull moments of that dull, quote unquote. So what are some tips for our listeners to experience more depth with those moments of life that are not necessarily exciting or thrilling, or grand in any sense? In addition to, I suppose, meditation. I feel like meditation is more of an active pursuit, but what are some more like passive pursuits?
I think just breathing, like wherever you are, whether you're an urban dweller, you're on the subway or the bus, and like just kind of tuning in. And it is a form of meditation, I guess you could say, but finding the sacred in the mundane, or finding the beauty in the ugliness, and finding the contentment, even when you're not exactly where you want to be in your life. That to me is just like sort of dropping in. I do this a lot. I'll put a hand on my heart and a hand on my belly, and I'll just breathe. So I'll take like a few deep breaths. I'll close my eyes. And if it's not like this perfect environment, I'll close my eyes and realize that it doesn't matter, that I can be like in this quiet, beautiful sanctuary of without having it be the actual reality.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I feel like, putting in some work with meditation helps with those moments later on where things get chaotic. And like, I feel like meditation definitely has a learning curve where at first you're like, oh, this is really hard, but then it like, you can snap into it. And then in those moments you can sort of snap into a meditative like state with the breathing, or maybe even not even applying breathing.
Yeah. It's like surfing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they call meditation a practice, like, oh, my meditation practice, because it is a practice. And then it's a practice for your life where, you're not always, you don't have to be in that, formal 30-minute, 1 hour seat, but you can take what you've done there and then apply it, in the yoga world, they say like off the mat, like you're taking it off the mat and applying it on a practical level.
I see.
In your daily life.
And what about like, because I feel like yoga traditionally is a practice to get us to that like meditative state. It's like the physical practice to get into that meditative state. I could be wrong, but you'll tell us. So like, how does the bridge of being physical in this practice lead to essentially like a higher state of consciousness?
I think so. I like this idea of I got really into the Sanskrit chanting back when I was in the East Village, and I was going to that first yoga studio where I wound up doing my training. And there was all this, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but like the Sanskrit, the chanting, the kirtan, and you would be chanting for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever. And then it would go into like total silence. And so I like this idea of like sound, like from sound, sound arises out of silence and goes back to silence. Movement arises out of stillness and then drops you back into stillness. Okay. So the physical practice for me was always like, you're moving your body through space, you're breathing, there's a feeling of cleansing, there's a feeling of detoxification, there's a feeling of kind of just like sweating it out, especially with a more physical yoga practice, a vinyasa practice or an Ashtanga practice. Where then, and it's funny, like back in the day, it's less so now, but back in the day, like our classes, they were really hard. Like they were hard. Like
just
yoga
in general.
Yeah. Like it was like fast paced and you were sweating and your breathing was, and the poses were hard. Like they were super, super challenging. You were really like pushing your body. And then you'd get to Shavasana where you got to lay down. And if you were one of these like type A, like mind is all over the place, can't sit still, can't lay down, can't shut up, can't get out of your own way. You did this physical practice and then you were like, okay, fine. Like I'm done. Like it was like waving the white flag. When you wave the white flag, then you're like, then you can drop. Like then your body, if you're like, and we're physical, but like I'm a super physical person. Right, I need to move. Yeah. But people are like, well, how do you do meditation? Like, I think all of that movement then lends itself to this ability to just like be really, really still and get really, really quiet.
That makes so much sense because that's how I got into meditation. Like I would work out in my backyard and like it was a good environment too, like surrounded by trees and flowers and like whether or not I had music on, I would always finish my session with like some stretching and but this time I was listening to a podcast and they were about to do a guided meditation and I was going to shut it off because I was like, I don't want to meditate. But I was like, wait, I always drop into this meditative like state when I'm done working out and stretching. I was like, let me give it a try. And it was such a beautiful experience. I was like, I got to do this more often.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah. And that's actually how I started a podcast. I was meditating and the universe told me to start a podcast.
I love that.
Yeah. But so I think the physical aspect really does help you drop into a meditation. Where can our listeners find you? jbyoga.com is my website. And I'm based, as you said, eastern end of Long Island, but there's retreats, lots of retreats around the world. So we have one coming up in Montauk, which is the eastern tip of Long Island, New York, but then another one in Portugal in October. Awesome. I think I'm going to put Italy back on the calendar. Woo! It's time to go back to Italy. And on your note of Italy and talking about how back in the day, yoga used to be hard. When I was on your retreat, your yoga was pretty hard. I know. Yeah. So I'm like, it used to be even harder than that. Wow. When I was, in my 20s. Yeah. But
Yeah, so we have those retreats on the calendar, and everything's on that website. So
Okay,
lots of info on there.
awesome. Did you mention your Instagram
Oh,
handle?
Instagram. Instagram is Jess Bellofatto. I shortened JESS and my last name.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, you can find me on there. I'm on Facebook as well. I know people are getting off Facebook,
Yeah,
but
they
also
are.
Jess Bellofatto on Facebook.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Jess.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you for listening to Highest Health. If you gained value from today's episode, leave a review, share with a friend, or post on social media. If you're interested in achieving your highest health or already pursuing it, send me a DM. I'd love to hear from you.